Hello again, everyone. Now, let's talk about modern philosophy, part three in the history of Western philosophy, and this dates from the 1600s until the present. And of course, talking about modern philosophy might take ages and ages and ages. There are a lot of philosophers, a lot of ideas, a lot of theories. So I'm only going to select certain theories and certain philosophers to just, refer to by the by, because in your other culture courses in the third and in the fourth year, you're going to be dealing with this. Okay, so that second year culture focuses on 17th century philosophy. You'll be dealing with the 18th and the 19th next year, and the 20th century in the fourth year. Okay, so let me just refer to just some examples of some of the philosophers and some of the theories that were prevalent during the modern period. We can divide, modern philosophy into four distinct periods. The Renaissance from the 1300s to the 1600s, the Age of Reason or the Age of the Enlightenment, 17th and 18th centuries. And here we have two major philosophies, rationalism and empiricism, and we'll be focusing on these this year. And then the 19th century, we have again a huge number of philosophers, most important of which could be Immanuel Kant and Friedrich Nietzsche. And one major theory will be the theory of utilitarianism, again, among other important theories. In the 20th century, we have Marxism, existentialism, phenomenology, pragmatism, again, among others, philosophies as well. So these are just examples, of some of the philosophers and some of the theories that were prevalent during the modern period. If we talk about the Renaissance, now this is the key word to modern philosophy, because this is when the Middle Ages ended and we formed a transition between medieval and modern philosophy. The word Renaissance, it's actually a French word which means rebirth. It began in Italy and lasted from about 1300 to about 1600. And this was a time of intellectual awakening. As I said, it's the rebirth. Stemming from what? The rebirth of what? Of the rediscovery of ancient Greek and Roman cultures. During the Renaissance, major advances occurred in sciences such as astronomy, physics, and mathematics. Scholars who call themselves humanists, they stress the importance of human beings and the study of classical literature as a guide to understanding life. There was also, during this period, emphasis on science, emphasis on humanism, which led to changes in the aims and the techniques of philosophic inquiry. Scholasticism that we dealt with in medieval philosophy, this declined, and philosophy was freed from its ties to medieval theology. The Age of Reason, or the Age of the Enlightenment, and basically here we're referring to the 17th and the 18th centuries. Two major philosophies were more or less prevalent during these two centuries. The first one is called rationalism, and the second one is called empiricism. I think you already know the word empiricism. We already introduced it before when we talked about epistemology. So rationalism was a philosophic outlook that rose in the 17th century. The basic idea of rationalism is that reason is superior to experience as a source of knowledge, and that the validity of sense perception must be proved from more certain principles. As for empiricism, it actually emphasizes the importance of experience and sense perception as the source and basis of knowledge. Now, we are going during our course this year to talk about rationalism and empiricism. We'll be dealing with certain philosophers, some rationalist philosophers, like, for instance, René Descartes and Spinoza, and some empiricist philosophers like Francis Bacon and Thomas Hobbes. So we'll be looking at this, in detail. As for the 19th century, the 19th century philosophy can be broadly characterized by several themes. For instance, the conflict between metaphysics and religious faith, the empirical sciences, a new focus on history, progress, evolution, new ideas of individuality, society, and revolution, and ever-increasing concerns about nihilism. And nihilism is the belief that life is meaningless. One of the major philosophies of the 19th century is utilitarianism, which maintains that the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people is the test of right and wrong, right? So you need to decide whether this idea is right or wrong if it brings happiness to a huge number of people. Utilitarians argued that all existing social institutions, especially law and government, must be transformed to satisfy the test of greatest happiness. I decided to bring you an interesting example, but let me just tell you that. In other words, utilitarianism is an effort to provide an answer to the practical question, what ought a person to do? And the answer is that a person ought to act so as to maximize happiness or pleasure and to minimize unhappiness or pain. Have a look at this example, right? Um, Save the woman or kill the joker, right? And according to utilitarianists, the best action is the one that leads to the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. And therefore, if we ask ourselves the question of, shall we save this woman? What we know about this woman is that she's a good person, she has 4 kids, neighbors love her, and she helps a lot of people. So if we are thinking of saving this woman, then we think that this is the best action because this is going to bring happiness to a great number of people. Now, what about killing the Joker? Now, the Joker has killed many people, will kill many more people, and he has no friends, and he's hated. So, if we ask a utilitarian this question, shouldn't Batman kill the Joker? You know, shall we kill him or no? Now Batman's doctrine is don't kill, regardless of how bad a person is. But would proponents of utilitarianism advise him to kill the Joker? If the Joker died, there would be less unhappiness. So, yes, I think people who believe in utilitarianism would really believe that, well, yes, let's kill the Joker because, by killing him, we will be evading, unhappiness and decreasing the number of people who will get jeopardized, from his own existence. So this is what utilitarianism is about. As for the 20th century, now this is difficult because again a huge number of ideas and a huge number of concerns. And again, you will be dealing with this in detail in the 4th year. Although it is difficult to generalize, 20th century philosophy has a number of broadly characteristic and widely shared concerns, and these include, but are not ever limited to, the ambition to clarify the nature and foundations of scientific knowledge, a concern with questions of meaning or sense in abeyance of assured theological or metaphysical foundations, questions about the role of mind, meaning, and value in the physical world, questions about the possibility and nature of an absolute or objective description of the world as a whole, questions about the relationship of language to thought and consciousness, and questions about the relationship of individual experience and freedom to broader systems of abstract rationality and collective practice. That's huge, that's so complicated. So I'll just going to refer to one theory during the 20th century, which is called the theory of um, pragmatism, right? Pragmatism was a theory represented by William James and John Dewey, and it actually maintains that knowledge is subordinate to action. The meaning and truth of ideas are determined by their relation to practice. So, for example, what does that mean? Um, if 2 people are talking to each other, right, one of them tells the other, will you crack open the door? I'm getting hot. Now, semantically, the word crack would mean to break, but pragmatically, we know that the speaker means to open the door just a little to let in some air, right? So this is the meaning of that the meaning and truth of ideas are determined by their relation to practice and not by their, semantic meanings. Again, pragmatism is not the only philosophy or theory that was prevalent during the 20th century, but I'm just trying to give you very brief examples of, what happened throughout the ages. But of course, my main focus will be the 17th century. Now, you can just, again, understand some of these ideas, be able to define them in your own words, and be able to write short notes upon. Okay, so just write this down, right? And I'll see you tomorrow with, an introduction to the 17th century. Thank you very much.